What's up guys, it's MTG back with another video, and today we're going into the ladder with an Azorius control deck, which is obviously a pretty classic archetype, but this Azorius control list actually loses a lot of new cards from the Brothers' War, and it takes the archetype into a little bit of a different direction than you normally see with just, your wandering emperors of this world and so on. So this deck is called Azorius Artifacts because it has some artifact synergies, or mainly we just play quite a number of artifacts, and yeah, it's just a lot of fun to play. I had an about 79% win rate in Platinum rank with 11 wins and 3 losses with this deck, and I think this will actually be the deck with which I climb until Diamond, because my band control deck was just, the games were just taking too long. But while this is a control list, this is way more straightforward and the games don't last as long. So let's talk through this deck. We are playing a classic Azorius control deck where we're just trying to win, well, with card advantage, right? And by incremental advantages. And what I really like about this deck is that we actually have Urza in here, and the Might Stone and Weak Stone, which means this is a deck that can summon Urza Planeswalker. And, Urza Planeswalker deck was one of my first videos for this new expansion, but every time an expansion is new, the meta is too fresh, the cards are too new to really, being able to judge them and make use of them and judge where they fit. But now the meta has settled a little bit. The cards a little better, so you can build a deck where those cards actually make a lot of sense. So we have 3 copies of Urza Lord Protector in here, which can eventually turn into Urza Planeswalker. But more importantly, actually in this deck, Urza is just a very nice free drop, and this deck benefits a lot from the static ability Artifact, Instant, and Sorcery spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, due to the fact that we do have a lot of artifacts and we do have a lot of instants and some sorceries. So Urza is just a solid creature by itself in this deck, and it can be a win condition with Urza Planeswalker. But the biggest thing about this Azorius control list that I want to highlight is 2 copies of the Temporal Anchor. So this is the first time I actually try out this card. Let's read it. It's a 6 mana legendary artifact, blue mana, which says at the beginning of your upkeep scry 2, and whenever you choose to put 1 or more cards on the bottom of your library while scrying, exile that many cards from the bottom of your library, and during your turn you may play cards exiled with the Temporal Anchor. Now, several things about this card. First of all, when this card got spoiled, I really misunderstood it, because what I thought is that the cards you scry away and that get exiled, I thought you can only play them during the turn you exiled them. But the fact is, you can play any card exiled with the Temporal Anchor during any turn as long as it's your turn. So basically the Anchor stores all the cards that you exile during your turn through scrying. And then secondly, I actually thought this card was garbage, because I was thinking, well, you pay 6 mana to, draw 2 extra cards each turn, but it's just a lot of mana and it's gonna get easily removed. But the fact is that what really lifts this card up from what I think is basically unplayable to pretty good is the fact that it's an artifact, because there is a lot of enchantment removal in the meta in the form of, for example, Destroy Evil, or if your opponent plays Invoke Despairs, enchantment get removed. But artifacts are, I think you can argue artifacts in the current standard meta are the permanent type that are hardest to remove, because the only artifact removal that is natural in the meta and that you actually see more or less often is Titan of Industry, which is of course very expensive, and the occasional Abrade that you see. But apart from that, not really much. So because of that, the Temporal Anchor actually tends to stick on the board, and if it does, it's just an amazing source of card advantage. You just basically draw 2 extra cards each turn, and it's just a card advantage machine. So we have 2 copies in this, and you know, once you put the anchor down, this is really when our game plan comes together, because you draw 2 extra cards each turn. That's a lot. So the anchor is basically the bread and butter of our card advantage. Then let's speak about our win conditions. We already talked about Urza Protector that can meld into Urza Planeswalker with the Mightstone and Weakstone. We actually run 4 copies of the Mightstone and Weakstone because, you know, as long as you got the creature Urza in the deck and you have the potential to use the Mightstone and Weakstone to meld it into the Planeswalker, I think this is a perfectly fine card by itself, right? It's just 5 mana. You can draw 2 cards or remove a creature. -5, -5 is a pretty important breaking point, because this means this can kill a Shieldred. And then it also ramps you in a way because it produces colorless mana that you can use for the artifacts in this deck. So Urza plus Mightstone Weakstone is one of our win conditions. The other one is 3 copies of the Fairy Temple Pilgrim. Also a new card from the Brothers War that really already has established itself in the meta as a control staple and even a mid-range staple. Those Vigilant Spirits that grow every time you draw a card are pretty amazing. Of course, Teferi can also be a source of card advantage. So these are our win conditions. We got Teferi and Urza, and Temporal Anchor is, you know, our big card draw machine. And then the rest of the deck is, you know, removal, counterspell, dealing with your opponent's stuff. So, speaking of removal, we run 3 copies of Depopulate as our board wipe. Maybe something noteworthy is that if you have an Urza on the board, right, and you cast your own Depopulate, you will also draw a card because Urza is multi-card, so that's pretty cool. Then we run in the 2 mana slot, we run a single copy of Destroy Evil, you know, for the Shieldreds of this world, and occasionally we can remove an enchantment. We run 2 copies of Fateful Absence for 2 reasons in this deck. First of all, you know, we want to have some way to deal with Planeswalkers. Obviously, this does that. But secondly, this deck actually generates so much card advantage that we really don't mind also killing a creature with Absence and giving our opponent the Clue token, which he can cash in for a card. So, because our deck has so much card advantage, we can really afford to also play Fateful Absence as a creature removal. Then, very, very importantly, we run 4 copies of Sunset Reverie. In this meta, this card is absolutely amazing. It gains a life, it makes you some blockers, and occasionally even draws you a card. Then, speaking of card draw or card selection, we run 4 copies of Impulse. 2 mana lets us look at the top 4 cards and pick any card that we like. And the reason we have actually all these 2 mana cards in here, a big reason is we run 4 copies of Arcane Proxy, which I'm really happy that I finally found a deck to put this in, because I think it's an amazing card. So it's a 7 mana 4 for your artifact creature, but you can play it for the prototype cost of 1 blue, and then it's a 2/1. And when it enters the battlefield, if you've cast it, you get to exile an instant or sorcery card from your graveyard, and you can copy that spell and cast it for free. And this means that at 3 mana, when we've cast a 2 mana spell on turn 2, most often it's going to be a Sunset Reverie or an Impulse. On turn 3 we can play an Arcane Proxy, and it's just massive value to cast another Sunset Reverie or to cast another Impulse. Also, of course, we can recast our removal spells in the forms of Destroy Evil and Fateful Absence. And if we cast it for a 7 mana, it enters the battlefield as a 4/3. And in situations where we need it, this means we can also recast Depopulate from the graveyard, because Depopulate has a mana value of 4 and Arcane Proxy for 7 mana has a power of 4. So just really cool fits for the proxy in this deck. And also it's an artifact, right? So it benefits not only from the cost reduction from Urza Protector, but the Mightstone Weakstone produces 2 colors mana and can thus help cast the Arcane Proxy. Finally, the final pieces for interaction we have within this deck is a single copy of Unlicensed Hearth to have some graveyard hate against the tenacious underdogs of this world. Again, this benefits from the cost reductions from Urza, and we can just cast it with a Mightstone and Weakstone. Can occasionally also be a win condition, right? Because Hearth can actually grow pretty big over the course of the game. And then most importantly, we run 3 copies of Dissipate as our counterspell. Dissipate is, all things considered, probably the best counterspell in Standard right now, because it counters anything and it exiles, and the exile clause is really, really important. It's great against tenacious underdogs, it's great against stuff like Memory Deluge, so they don't get a second cast out of it. And it's just a fantastic counterspell. It's important to note though that Dissipate is the only card in this deck that you will not scry away with the Temporal Anchor, because the Anchor only allows you to play cards during your turn, which means that if you exile Dissipate, you won't be able to cast it during your opponent's turn. So instead you want to always put Dissipate into your hand. And that's the whole deck. The land base is pretty straightforward. We run the channel lands from Kamigawa, and then we have all the dual lands to run Sparrow's Headquarters, so we can cycle it away if we need, and 2 copies of Tranquil Cove to have an additional dual land that can also gain us some life. As I said, a pretty high win rate deck, so this is a deck that you can climb with. Had a lot of fun playing this deck, so hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I see you guys soon.
not overconfident. You're just underwhelming. We must protect the people.
This is why you summoned me. I am the master of this domain. This doesn't concern you. I've collected all the data I need.
May your blade strike true. Try not to miss me.
The entire multiverse is at stake. I won't back down. I am here to learn. You're a feisty dance partner.
Prove your worth, mine.
It's nice to see a familiar face.
I am the master of this domain. You are outwitted and outmatched. I am Urza, planeswalker. This is the legacy of the Thran.
Spies everywhere. Guess we'll have to try again.
Anything made can be added.
Faced with tragedy, even observers need to take action.
The data might be useful. This doesn't concern you. Automated battalion, advance. Don't start. Enough. You're dismissed.
You know, I've always got time to fight evil. There is much the past can teach us. Knowledge is meant to be shared. tragedy, even observe. I am here to learn. Who's that handsome devil? I lost a battle, not the war.
I command. Unnecessary cost. I am the master of this domain. Everything falls into place. Another predictable outcome. Ramp up production immediately.
For the sake of the future, I will defend the past.